Hi everyone. We are going to look at how we can generate documents with Power Automate. As mentioned in our earlier videos, whenever we run across any issues for our client or any problems we have resolved for our client, we'll generate these videos for you to review and you can resolve your issues as well. So we had an interesting call with a client and they asked us if we could generate document based on a SharePoint list. This was actually a continuation of our earlier assignment where we used SharePoint syntax to extract data from documents and put it in a SharePoint list. So what we are going to do today is we are going to generate a Word document and generate a PDF document from it and upload it to a SharePoint library as well as send it as an attachment to email. Okay, so first let's look at the agreement which we are going to convert today. So this is our service agreement. You have seen this in our first video as well. So you have what we do over here is, if you notice, we have the client name over here, the street address, the city, state, zip code, as well as the day when this contract is going to be effective. And if you scroll a little bit down over here, we see that again we have the client name, client address, the city, zip code, and also the email address. And finally we have the client name over here, the name who is going to sign it, and the job title. So what we are going to do is we also have another document which is basically a work order where you have the client name. If you notice over here, I've already templated it this way, like it's showing the service provided, start date, end date, and so forth. Okay, so how do we basically mark these documents to be assign some values from a SharePoint list? So the very first step on Word is, once you have opened this document, right click somewhere on the ribbon and select customize the ribbon. Okay, once this dialog box opens, you'll see there is a developer option on the right hand side. Check that option and click OK. Now you'll have a developer tab associated over here. So the first step is, what we are going to do is, I'm going to go ahead and remove this particular stuff and say this is a contract date. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and mark all of these things. So this one, I'm going to say this is a client name. Go over here, change this to client address, change this to client city and client state, and finally client zip code. And similarly we'll go down over here and we are going to say over here I'm going to change this to notice client name, because where do we want to send the notice in case there is any conflict. So notice client address, notice client city, notice client state, and finally notice client zip code. Then we have this address where we'll say notice client email. And finally, let's go down over here and we are going to change this to signed by client name and over here we are going to just say signed by client contact name, and finally signed by client contact job title. So now we have marked all our options which we are going to replace. So the next part is we are going to highlight this first. And what we are going to do is we are going to click on the top under the developer tab, say plain text content control. So if you notice over here, now it has marked this information, and there are like this vertical dots over here. If you click on design mode, it's going to show you that this particular option has been marked now. So I can click on properties, and I'm going to say this particular property is contract date. Okay, click OK. So now if you notice over here, it knows what that particular option is. So over here, I'm going to go ahead and mark this as client name, client address, client city, client state, and finally client zip code. So what I've done is now I've gone ahead and renamed all of these, or given this appropriate names. So we have notice client name, notice client address, and so forth. And finally at the end we have this signed by client name, signed by client contact name, and signed by client contact job title. So you'd be wondering like, oh, this is looking ugly. Why did it push it to the next line or next page? It's just because we are in the design mode. As soon as you remove the design mode, you'll notice that it's actually not formatting it the weird way what you saw. And the way you can find out whether this is marked, you can just click on it and it will show you what this particular property is going to be. Okay, so similarly I went ahead and also changed the work order information. If you see over here, we have the client name, service provided, start date, end date, hourly rate, and so forth. And over here we have this as today's date, which keeps on updating. Okay, so once this particular stuff is done, what you need to do is you need to upload these templates onto a SharePoint site. So before we do that, I'm going to just quickly give you some idea on what our SharePoint lists are. So I have the client information, which is like our master client data. If you notice over here, I have a client name, the client address, the client city, the client state. These are basically the same fields what we'll need on our Word template. Similarly, I have another list called consultant information. So if you go over here, I have this consultant information, and on this there is only one name over here, and it's just a consultant name. There's nothing else on this one. And then I also have basically a joint list between the client name, consultant name. So if you notice, this client information is a lookup column coming from the client information list, and the consultant name is coming from the consultant information list. So what we are going to do is, on the client information, we are going to have a Power Automate flow, which will basically, once you click on this and you go to automate, there will be an option over here saying generate a master service agreement. And once you click on it, what it will do is it will upload that master service agreement onto this master service agreement library. And similarly, when you go to consultant client information, you click over here, click on automate, you'll have an option over here saying generate a work order, and it will upload that work order on the work orders library. Okay, so the first step is you're going to go to edit your flows or go on my flows, and you'll notice that you have I have bunch of flows over here. The first step is you're going to click on new flow and you're going to call it or go to instant cloud flow. And I'm going to call this generate master service agreement. Okay. And what I'm going to do is on this one, I'm going to select for a selected item. Okay. Then I click on create, and now it's going to show me my trigger, which is for selected item. So I'm going to go ahead and select my contracts management, and I'm going to say this is going to be on the client information because that's where I'm going to generate. So basically on this one, when I'm on client's information, when I click on this, I want that option over here to generate a master service agreement. So client information, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on add input, and I'm going to say, yeah, this one I also need to send out an email, and I'm going to say this is going to be reviewer email. Click on add, and I'm going to put in a subject, and finally I'm going to say comments. And you have this other option. So if you click on this, you have you can add a drop down list of options or make this the field optional and so forth. Right now we are not going to look at that. When we look at generating the work order, I'll show you how you can make those fields optional. Now click on new step. So over here we are going to basically create a Word document from the template which we have generated. But before we do that, we have to go and upload those templates to our SharePoint library. So I've created this template library, and what I'm going to do is I'll just go ahead and delete this old one. And I'm going to click on upload and click on files. And I'm going to go to my folder where I have all those documents. And I'm going to select service agreement base template with fields and work order base template with fields. These are the documents which have all the items or all the fields defined. So I click on open, and these files are uploaded now. So the next step is going to be I'm going to generate Word. I'm going to find action, and it is under Word Online Business. So you click on that. Notice that this one is a premium connector. So it's called Populate, a Microsoft Word template. So I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to select my contracts management, and then on the drop down I'm going to select the template library where I've stored my template for the service agreement. And then I click on this picker and say use the service agreement based template with fields. Okay. Once this is done, you notice that it has picked up all the fields which we had defined on that document. Now let's click on this, and you'll notice over here from the selected item, even though I have on the client's information, I have the client name, client address, client city, and all that stuff, I don't see that information over here. So what we need to do is, for when we do a for selected item, it is not going to pull up all the remaining fields. So what we need to do is we need to add a step in between this, and we are going to say add the step called get item action. Okay. Once we have done this, again we have to go to the contracts management. The list name is client information, and for the ID we are going to use the selected from the selected item, the ID from there. Now we have got all the items, the fields from that particular item. So now if you click on this on the client, so over here if you notice, we just have like client zip code, client state, client city. We have not distinguished between notice client state and all that stuff. So I'm just going to use client state. Sorry, this one should be zip code. This one is the client state, client city, client address, and contract date, client name. Again, so over here the client name, by default what I did was I renamed the title to client name. So but on Power Automate you have to select the title over there. This is the client address, client state, client zip code, client name is again the title, client city, check the client contact email address, again signed by client, and finally the job title. Okay, now this is going to basically generate a Word document for you, but we need to put it into a SharePoint document library. And as we had seen initially, that I've created this master service agreement document library where we need to store this service agreement. So the next step is going to be we are going to add an action called create file, and select this create file, and we are going to select contracts management folder path is going to be master service agreement, and I'm going to name that saying title dash master service agreement .docx. Make sure you put this extension or else you won't be able to open that document on SharePoint library. And then when you click on file content, it will show you the previous generated document. So you just click on Microsoft Word document. The next step is I'm going to convert this particular document to a PDF version. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on new step, and I'm going to say convert Word document to PDF. And sometimes it does have issues with this. So the easier way is I'll just say populate Microsoft So basically this one, sometimes it doesn't show up on the search, so you have to find the word online and then say convert Word document to PDF. And so once you have selected that action, go back and select your document library where you have stored the Word document. And then over here, what we are going to do is we call that as, if you remember, we had the title dash master service agreement .docx. So that's the file we want to convert. Okay. Once that is done, what we are going to do is our next step is going to be we are also going to email this document to the email address which we are going to define. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say email, and we are going to say send an email with the Office 365 Outlook. Okay, and in the to now I'm going to use the dynamic content. And if you notice on the when we created this first step for a selected item, you notice we had called this particular field called reviewer email. So on this one, if you just look at reviewer email, you'll see that option over here. Similarly, if you search for subject, you'll find that over here, and then say comments, and you'll see the comments. Okay. The next option, what we are going to do is we are going to send this as an attachment. Okay. So what we are going to do is we are going to go to do a title dash master service agreement .pdf. Okay, and then on the attachment content we are going to say attach the PDF document which we have generated over here. Once that is done, I'll also go ahead and mark this as normal, because sometimes when you get these emails it will say importance was set to lower, and so forth. So once this is done, click on save, and if you have any issues it will show that on the flow checker, but if you see over here you don't have any errors, you don't have any warnings, so we are good now. So what we did was on a selected item we have this reviewer email, subject, comments, then we got the item first, then we use this populate a Microsoft Word template and associated all these fields from the get item, and then we created this file on a SharePoint library. We converted it to a PDF document, and then we are sending that PDF document as an email. So let's go ahead and test this real quick. Okay, so if you see over here, we have all these things set up. Now if we go back over here, let's refresh this list. And if you look at automate, it's not showing you what it needs to be because you need to select an item. So let's go ahead and select that John Doe testing and click on automate, and now you have this generate master service agreement option. So let's click on that. And the very first time when it comes up, it needs to have the permissions, like it will say sign in into, because we are using the SharePoint connector, Word Online Business connector, and Office 365 Outlook. So I'm going to go ahead and click on continue. And I'm going to just type in my email address, and I'm going to say, please review this agreement. Could you please review this service agreement and forward it to the client? Okay. And I'm going to click on run flow. Now if you go back over here and refresh the screen, it will say that it has succeeded. Now, in order to verify that it really succeeded, let's go to Master Service Agreement. And you have this Word document right over here. And then let's see if we got an email. And if you go back over here, you'll notice that I also got an email. So I double click on this, click open. And if you notice over here, it has replaced all those fields and it has all the data in here based on what I have on my list, this particular list. So you have the 111 testing street. If you see, the client contact email address was that. So if you scroll up, it's picking up test at faketestingcompany.com and so forth. Now you notice that this is not how generally the legal documents are, because it's really hard to read. Okay, it's saying 2022/01/10. So let's go ahead and fix that real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this document real quick. And I'm going to edit this one. And on populate the template, go in and then find the contract date, delete that, and on the expression, what we are going to do is format date time, parenthesis, and we are going to select the contract date. Okay, so it has uploaded that contract date, and what I'm going to do is single quotes, I'm going to put it as day of and comma YYY. Now here is a problem. If you notice, we are putting in, and this is the standard formatting thing for date time. If you put in D, that means it will pick up the day, and then is like the full month name, and YYY is the 4-digit year. But if we do this, what it is going to do is it is also going to replace this D with the actual date, Y with the short year. So in order to let the format date time know that this particular is actually literal, we put it in double quotes, and then we click on OK. And click on save. And once that is done, what we are going to do is let's make sure that we have deleted the old document, and let's go ahead and click on generate service agreement. And if you notice, this time it did not ask me for this permission. So I'm going to go ahead and enter my email address. Please review this again. Please review this document. And I'm going to click on run flow. And now let's go back over here, refresh the screen. And again, it has succeeded. Again, I've got an email. And let's double click on that email. And if you notice, now I have 10 day of January 2022, like perfectly formatted, and everything is done. Now this one was pretty easy because all this information was like just plain text. So I wanted to show you another one where you have these lookup columns where you have the client name and consultant name coming from a different list. So for that, we have this another work order. Oops, not that one. On the templates, we have this work order based template. So if you look at that, it has all the client names, services provided, and so forth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another flow similar to this. So I'll create that flow and I'll explain it real quick. Okay, so what I've done on this particular automated Power Automate workflow is I've created another one to generate the work order, and I'm again looking at my contracts management. Let me go ahead and delete this one. So this is my consultant client information list, which has these lookups for the client name and consultant name. So what I'm doing is I'm going against the consultant client information. And what I've done is I've added another um, attribute over here called send email, which either if you click on yes, then only it will send email, or if you click on no, it won't send an email. But you can also change this to make this field optional, so you don't have to have that email address and so forth. Again, we have to get the item, otherwise we won't be able to get the properties out of it. And over here, what I'm doing is I'm getting the work order based template with fields. So if you go to my template library, you'll see that I have this second document over here. So I'm picking that up, and if you see over here, it needs the signed client name. So on the lookup, you have to basically select client name value for it to work. Similarly, the case for the consultant name is consultant name value. Again, we need the client name value again. And on the end date, this time what we are doing is we are marking it like the normal mm/td/yyyy. Same is the case for start date, just plain date. You have the service provided. So if you look over here, this is the title which I renamed to service provided, and it is saying Power Automate Consulting. So we are getting that title, the hourly rate signed by client contact name, and the client job title. And just for now, what I did was I'm just going to generate a Word document. So what I've done is client name, consultant name, and work order.docx, and I'm just uploading that to the work orders library. And if the send email has been selected to true, then it will send the Word document as an email attachment. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this real quick. So I have selected that. If you click on automate, now you see that we have this generate work order. So click on generate work order. And I can again type in my name. Since right now we need all these fields, you'll see that it has a star next to it. Please review this work order. Please review this work order and forward it. And I'm going to say, yeah, please send this as an email. And I click on run flow, and let's go over here, refresh this, and you'll see that this work order has been created. If you click on it, you will notice that it did pick up the lookup values like John Doe testing. Service provided was just the title, but the consultant name was also another lookup. And then it has the billing rate, the start date, end date, and then it has picked up all this information. And at the same time, it did generate this email. And if you notice over here, now I have the Word document as an attachment. So what we did in this video is we just created a Word document, converted it to a PDF based on a Word template. So as I said in my earlier videos, whenever we come across any kind of issues or problems and we create a resolution, we are going to upload these videos. So please do subscribe to our video channel to see the new videos whatever we upload on YouTube. Thank you.